Alrighty, now that I'm unmuted, let's get this thing started.
Well
Mission
done.
accomplished. It only took me one sentence to realize I was muted. I feel like that's pretty good. Since it's the physical mute button, so I didn't have the indicators right in front of me. Anyways, welcome everyone. It's been 2 weeks now?
It's been a minute. We had TwitchCon submissions 2 weeks ago, and then you got caught up
right.
at the doctor appointment.
Oh, I forgot about TwitchCon submissions.
Yep.
I don't
So
even know when we learn about those.
good luck to anyone who may be in chat who submitted.
Yeah, exactly. Ernest and I have a long-standing tradition of submitting panels that get rejected, so I don't see any reason why we would change that at this point, really. But you never know. Could be accepted. We'll see.
Well, I set a brick of cocaine to bribe someone. So
Perfect. Okay, that should actually help.
Okay.
Anyways, this is Your Brand, Your Business. It's a show on StreamerSquare where we talk about basically everything business. Although, of course, the two of us focus more on finance and tax, so we err on that side. But really, the point is, if you are looking at streaming as more than a hobby, we're here to talk about those things. I am Galen Herbst Cortina. I'm a financial planner who works with streamers, and you are
Ernest Jones. I'm a CPA that works with broadcasters. So
nice.
that's what we do. Anything exciting to report over the past 2 weeks, Galen?
No. So the reason we didn't do, yes, actually, if we're going back 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, my nephew was born, so that was cool.
Yep.
First child of any of the
First of his name.
First of his name's Lincoln. I don't think first of his name. And then, we missed Monday last week because my wife, who is 33 weeks pregnant, had a bit of an early labor scare. And so I was at the hospital for 4 hours.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So it ended up being absolutely nothing.
Those are what, Braxton Hicks? Is that what they're called?
Yep. And she's been getting them for a long time, and they're completely normal, but it's like she was getting a lot of them. Called the doctor, and the doctor was like, yeah, just go to the hospital for a bit of monitoring. It's probably nothing, but it doesn't hurt to check.
Do you know that?
We didn't have a show.
Do you know that? I forget the name of the game right now, but the collaborative cooking game.
Overcooked?
Overcooked, right? Yeah.
It's amazing.
When I'll play with friends. I will grab the rice and spin in a circle and induce panic with people because I'm like, I got the rice, fellas. I got the rice. What do I do with the rice? Rice. Does anyone need rice? Hey, does anyone need rice? And so if I was in your situation, this is coming back to what you just said, I would be having a similar reaction. Okay, what do we do?
I sat there very calmly.
That's good. That's good. Good to know that you're calm in a crisis. You can be trusted in a crisis, Galen.
I try.
So now watch this. So we're going to be talking about insurance today. And Galen is far more experienced in this area in terms of managing downside risk and things like that. So I think the way we're going to approach this is Galen's going to wax poetic about these various topics, and I'm going to kind of interview and ask him follow-up questions as we go for him to elaborate and add 2 cents here and there. So if anyone has a question about, insurance type topics, and I don't think we're just talking health insurance today, we're talking actually above and beyond that.
Actually, so in this case, I wanted to first hit the question. So what spawned this basically? Because we've talked about health insurance in the past and some things like that. We got a question in the StreamerSquare Discord about are there types of commercial or business insurance that you need as a streamer? So that was really the genesis of this. I went and talked with an expert that I've worked with around here who, Katie just sent me an article that I almost assume is satirical, but it's an article that says playing video games with your daughter may be good for her health, which if that's the case, I'm all for it.
Nice.
We talked with, I talked with a local expert on it and got his take, which fortunately for me, lined up with what I had been thinking. What I want to talk about first is that business insurance piece, since we'd been asked specifically about that. And if we have specific questions on other insurances, I can talk about them a bit. I want to make sure we do in maybe October, so after post TwitchCon, a show specifically again on health insurance because open enrollment will be in November.
Sounds
for
good.
US at least. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the fundamental concept of insurance. What is insurance? When do you get it? what kinds of things do you look for, what kinds of things do you avoid.
You never get it when the dealer is showing an ace. You lose all your advantage.
Exactly.
So that's a Blackjack Vegas joke. I'm sorry. Continue.
That's when you split and double down.
Yes.
So, so what insurance is a contract where you agree to pay a certain amount of money,
Your premium.
your premium, and in return, if certain conditions are fulfilled, you receive money back. The reason that is important is because what you insure is you don't insure everything. You insure against major low frequency risks. So the two factors that you consider on whether or not something should be insured is if things were to go wrong, how badly could they go wrong, or what is the magnitude of the downside event, and then what is the frequency of that downside event happening. So you get a 2x2 grid of I just had a doorbell ring of magnitude versus frequency. We've been getting deliveries because our baby shower's in 2 weeks. I'm gonna go check it. I'll be right back.
Okay. And while he's doing that, I'll talk about all the fun stuff that he just mentioned in applicable terms. So when he's talking about an event, he's talking about, think of like homeowners or renters insurance, right? So you've got an event occurring, say a tornado.
It was on Friday was our 5-year wedding anniversary, and it was the second half of the gift that I had ordered. So
Oh, very cool.
important to get that.
So while you were away, I was just going over an example of, what that 2x2 grid is.
Yes.
So like a flood insurance, for example, right? So like say you're renting or you own a home and a flood occurs, right? Well, how catastrophic is that downside and what's the frequency of it?
Yep.
You're in New Orleans or
Really
Iowa,
on topic right now.
right? Like those are bad things that happen fairly frequently. So what is the premium going to be? And then what's your exposure?
Mm-hmm.
If your entire home flooded, it's ruined and you own it and you spent, $400,000 on it and you have a loan for it. Clearly you're going to want to manage the downside of a flood coming through, which seems to happen annually, right? In that location.
Yeah. And
I mean, they're surrounded by 3 bodies of water: Mississippi River, Lake Pontchartrain, and Gulf of Mexico, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Flood insurance specifically is actually government mandated for certain areas because of how stupid it is to live there, essentially. Which New Orleans is increasingly becoming that. But yeah, so that would be a high magnitude event that theoretically happens at a low frequency. Another one that is like that is, again, earthquake insurance, for instance, out here in California, because even though we get more earthquakes than is normal, it is very infrequent for there to be an earthquake that causes major damage. So for instance, just last week we had a 7.4 earthquake, or a week and a half ago, which is huge. It's a really big earthquake, and not shit all happened. Like, in terms of California is really well built for dealing with earthquakes. So it wasn't like there was huge wouldn't that just be year round from living in Cleveland?
The river caught fire.
Yeah, there.
At one point in its history.
Yeah, but other things like renters insurance is for like if there's a fire that knocks out your apartment and you fire happens, sprinklers go off, your apartment's flooded, all that kind of thing. So you insure, and even with health insurance, right? You're not insuring your day-to-day health care or things, as in you're not insuring, oh man, I got a small cut on my finger, shit, I stubbed my toe, right? You're insuring the major things like, oh no, cancer, or oh no,
West Nile Ebola cancer.
Exactly. The only time you really see insurance, the only really time you only see that frequency versus magnitude insurance insurance grid get messed up is really with auto insurance. And the reason that it gets messed up there is auto insurance incidents happen much more frequently than you would normally insure for an event. But because we're a country that drives to work and drives to everything, and car accidents tend to be relatively high cost, you're mandated to have insurance, which is why car insurance is expensive. So anyways, that's what and that's what generally the basics of when you insure things and when you maybe don't insure things, right? If things are low frequency, high magnitude, you insure them. Things are high frequency, high magnitude, you avoid them, right? You don't live on the side of a fucking active volcano. I'm sorry, right? Like, no one will insure you if you're living there.
It's
Um,
sort of like to bring it to like an entertainment type analogy, and I don't know if this is a true story or not, but I heard that at some point Jackie Chan, because he did all his own stunts,
mm,
was uninsurable. Right. So like when you're filming a
right.
movie and you've got a star and they're doing their own stunts, they'll insure in case like loss for the movie studio, right? Because they
Yep.
have all this money invested, and if the star were to, God forbid, die, then they've lost all the costs they've sunk into the movie at this point.
Yep.
And so there's insurance to bridge that gap.
Yep.
Um,
When you even see like athletes, like quarterbacks, get their right arm insured, right?
yeah, I mean, I've
Uh,
got my face and legs insured. It just makes sense. Those two pieces only. We got them. We got them. Look at that. We broke
I
them.
wasn't expecting that.
Perfect.
Um,
Timed perfectly.
so yeah, those are the kinds of things. So like we said, low frequency, high magnitude, insure. High frequency, high magnitude, find a situation where it's not high frequency, right? Um, Low frequency, low magnitude, stubbing your toe, banging your shoulder into a wall. Okay, fine, you don't do that. And then if it's low magnitude, high frequency, you still don't really worry about it. My cat is knocking things over. So with
High
that,
magnitude, low, or no, high frequency, low magnitude.
exactly, my cat knocks shit off of shelves and stuff all the time, but very low magnitude generally.
So then from that, so we kind of you went over the concepts of what insurance is for conceptually, and the type of events it covers. So what types of insurance that were you doing the research on and as applicable to broadcasters?
Yeah, so specifically today, the thing I wanted to talk about was there are a couple different forms of business insurance that you can get that are applicable in different situations. And I want to talk about whether or not they are relevant for streamers because of the risk factors that they cover. One of the big ones is something that's called a business continuity insurance or a key person insurance, and that's one where you can insure if an individual who worked for the company were to become disabled or were to die and couldn't work. The company would get paid out as a way to sort of bridge the gap between the time that it took, the time that the event happened, and the time for either the person to recover or for you to find someone else who might fill that role, or even depending on how bad it was, close down the company, but do it in a way that's not a fire sale.
You see a lot of those insurance types in very small businesses where it's maybe 20 employees. You've got an owner who started the company, does a lot of the key things, harvests the relationships, and if that person were to get hit by a bus, the company's just lost at sea.
Yep. Or even if you just have, even if they're not the owner, if you have one salesperson who drives all business, or you're a partnership, and if one of the others were to be, and that goes more in the buy-sell territory, so I can talk about that. But it's any time that the business would be significantly impacted by someone's death or disability, sometimes you can look at insurance to cover that.
So would you say that the broadcaster is the key person in the business?
I would, but I don't think there's but in this case, I don't think you would be getting what's called key person insurance. The reason being, if the broadcaster dies, there's basically zero salvage value to the business outside of the actual equipment itself, right? You're not going to be able to really sell anything unless you're Ninja Doctor Disrespect level, right? You're not really going to be selling anything from the business. Having an extra 6 months to sell the business wouldn't make a difference, right? You're not going to get more interested buyers or something like that.
Well, in my will, it's stood that if something were to happen to me, God forbid, that you cut off my face and you take it, and then
And the legs.
and the legs, and you film this show without me. So you'd like do like this, and then you do a cutaway, put on my face, and then say my bits.
God.
That's the move.
Well, at least
okay?
the backgrounds look similar.
Yeah, exactly. We're in the same apartment. It's fine.
So that's one. Another one that actually might be something that could be something that streamers would use, but would be really, really, really hard to source, is what's called essentially like business expenses or business continuity insurance. And that's the kind of insurance that if you, the owner operator, were unable to run the business, it at least covers the basic expenses of the business. The reason that I don't push that super hard with my streamer clients is because most streaming businesses are extremely low overhead. Their actual expenses to run are extremely low. It's not like you're running something in manufacturing or something where you have really high employee costs or something like that, right? So that's one where, again, I don't think streamers really need that. If they were to get something like that, they should get as a personal policy for disability insurance. Because, again, it's not going to be the cost of the business that sinks them while they are unable to work. It'd be their personal costs.
And this isn't an advocating for them, but you've probably seen the commercial. This is what, like the Affleck commercials, right? That's the type of insurance that they're hawking for the most part. Is those should you be unable to stream for a little bit, you would file a claim and they would cover personal expenses, right?
And disability insurance. I've only found one company that'll underwrite streamers because it's an unusual business, right?
Oh, so wait, before you go into it, what do you mean underwrite? What does that mean?
Oh, yes, sorry. So when an insurance company is deciding whether or not they want to insure you or the risk that you're trying to insure and how much that will cost, they have a process that's called underwriting, and that is them doing an analysis on all of the relevant risk factors, usually based on population specifics, but or population numbers, but your specific risk factors, and then from there deciding whether or not they want to insure you and what it might cost to do so. So that's like when you're applying for health insurance or life insurance or something like that, where you have to tell them how old you are, if you smoke, if you have medical conditions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, essentially they're going to intake all of your demographic information and determine what the risk is to them and if you're insurable and what that premium amount would look like.
Yep, and they have that there's actually a whole very highly technical field called actuarial sciences, where
people, let me tell you something.
Are geniuses.
They're geniuses, but listen, I'm not one to ever stereotype them. But if you ever talked to an actuary, it is tough. It's tough sledding.
I know. I used to work at an insurance company, and I knew 2 cool actuaries, and I liked the rest of them, because they were good to work with, and you'd ask them a question and you'd get an answer with data behind it. But also, there were only 2 of them where I'd be like, let's go grab a beer after work, and not and I work with streamers, right? So I have a high tolerance for the cringe.
Analytical people from my experience. I've never met one that's very...
This is a CPA calling people dry and analytical.
First of all, I do not meet the standard CPA stereotype. I'm cool as shit. Let's get that on record. Clip that. Send that around the world. Anyway, so we're talking about underwriting.
We're talking about underwriting. Actuaries.
So what that entails.
It tends to be that if the actuaries come back with a number that I don't expect, they have a super good reason for it, and I'm at that point more trying to learn from them what that reason is than I am trying to contest it. Because these are people who know their stuff and do it based off of hardcore data.
So they go through that process of personal underwriting to do ADA insurance. And ADA stands for accidental death and dismemberment, or what is it? Accidental...
There's death and dismemberment, AD&D.
AD&D, that's what it is.
Which you should almost never buy, for the record. AD&D is a subset of life insurance, which pays out more money if your death were particularly gruesome, and most people don't die that way.
So my question then...
My former employer had someone who got a huge payout from an AD&D policy but it was because the reason they had it is because their employer was a tech company and offered it.
So I was going to ask you then, so you would never advocate a broadcasting client have it then?
It's on average, most streamers probably aren't in a position where they need life insurance to start off with. And then beyond that, AD&D is a very niche subset of.
So it's under the umbrella. So we have life insurance.
It's a life insurance rider. So what a rider is an amendment to the contract that confers a specific benefit and usually comes with a specific cost. It's a rider that costs a bit of money, not a ton, but also almost never pays out. It makes insurance companies a lot of money. And anything that makes insurance companies a lot of money tends not to make a ton of sense for you.
So would you equate it to the when you go buy a car and the getting protection on your clear coat?
Yeah. Your undercarriage coating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, again, I actually have at a previous firm had a client who she retired at age 35 she retired at age 35 because her husband died a gruesome death and she got paid out a lot of money for it. It's like, um, so that AD&D is not big, but um, so I don't think streamers really need the business continuity stuff. I don't think they really need like a key person thing because again, it's not really the unless you were like Critical Role, right? Critical Role would have a good argument for a key person insurance because they have a cast, right? Become a tragic widow profit. You're forgetting the question mark step in between get married and become a tragic widow. That makes it seem more ominous.
I mean, I was told growing up that the first time you get married for money. The second time you get married is for love.
Apparently, my great grandmother's advice was always, "It's just as easy to fall in love with a rich man as a poor man." At least to my mother. But probably don't need those. You also probably don't need another common kind of business. And again, I'm talking more specifically business insurances here. You probably don't need a kind of business, the like, essentially like errors and omission, or it's the equivalent, or malpractice kind of insurance, because you shouldn't be making professional recommendations that would have a big impact on people's lives.
Yeah. So
Ernest and I have E&O.
Wait, what?
Or should have E&O.
I'm kidding. I have
E&O. Lawyers have E&O. Physicians have malpractice, dentists have malpractice, right? That kind of stuff. So that's probably one you won't need. And you probably won't need the kind of insurance that a lot of like shop owners need, like physical shop owners, that protect them if a potential customer were to say trip and fall in the store and injure themselves, right? Because again, you don't need most kinds of business insurance because you're not likely storing huge amounts of physical product that could be damaged or stolen or
low frequency,
right? You're not storing huge amounts of physical product. And you're not presumably bringing a ton of people into your house where you stream, kind of a thing.
But if you're doing one of those tabletop streams.
But if you are a major stream like Critical Role earning big money, because again, you got to consider the cost versus the benefit, right? If you're not earning a shitload of money, it probably doesn't make sense to insure the business because it's just not that valuable.
And so we're talking about like commercial liability insurance, right? So when I talk to broadcasters, I'm couching this in terms of you're not a construction company. The odds are that you're not going to back over someone with a truck.
Right.
That's not really going to happen. You're often in your home office broadcasting.
And if you're in a situation where you're streaming and driving a truck, stop.
Yeah,
unless it's like Euro Truck Simulator or something.
Hashtag don't get banned.
Yeah, who was it? There was someone who got banned for that, right? And deservedly so, for like reading chat while driving.
I think it was a temp ban. I think there have been a few occurrences of that. And so those are like that's an interesting case study or thought experiment. Like if you're an IRL streamer, right, and you're like traveling around, and like would you theoretically be an advocate for that?
What would you insure though?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
You're not in the same physical location, presumably. It's not a location that you own, right? So, like for instance, a photographer who sets up a photography shoot in their, say they have like a warehouse location where they do it, might need business insurance for that. The models coming in for the shot wouldn't need insurance.
Yeah, and you'd never be able, and you'd never clear underwriting because you're always changing location.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Would it even be something that a company would underwrite? The answer is probably no.
Or what's it called? The thing of London that'll insure anything.
Lloyd's of London. Yeah, they're the ones who will do disability insurance for streamers because they also specialize in actors, athletes, that kind of thing. But
it was them.
Yeah, it's Lloyd's.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know who. Okay, gotcha.
It's Lloyd's specifically.
Yeah. So you may have heard of this company. Like I made the joke earlier about like insuring my face and legs. Like you'll see a celebrity insuring some body part,
which is reasonable though for them,
or some sort of like unique property or something. Lloyd's of London is this company that's the company that's doing this.
Them and their subsidiaries, but yes.
Yep.
So So the one kind of insurance that some streamers might need on the business side, and this depends very heavily on how they operate their stream. Again, if you are a solo streamer, you just work from home most of the time, probably the only insurances you need are on the personal side: health, auto, renter's insurance, or homeowner's insurance, depending on what's relevant, disability insurance, that kind of thing. One note on renters or homeowners insurance: make sure that you check your policy and with your policy, the company that underwrote your policy, to make sure that home business property is not excluded from it. And if it is, see if you can get a rider to add it on. Because again, the total, if someone's, if do we have any full-time streamers in chat? If Loco or Hunter's setup were to burn down, it would probably only cost them 5 to 10 grand to replace, right? Which is a lot of money, but you also don't tend to, like, that tends to be something that you include under a rider on a renter's policy as opposed to getting its own separate policy for it. But you do need to check with the company to see what they do, because you don't want the situation to come up where your apartment burns down or there is a fire and then there's a bunch of water damage, and they go, "Oh, you were running a home business? Sucks to suck. That wasn't covered under your policy." Like,
yeah,
right?
and again, a rider is essentially just an amendment,
A contract amendment. Yep.
to the life insurance policy, because it's like premiums. That's just what you're paying, right? Like it's this conceptual thing where they have niche terms, but it's just the monthly bill, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. So the one that you might consider, depending on your structure, the structure of your stream, is if you are, like we were saying, critical role, where you have multiple recurring characters who are a major part of it, or if you're a company like StreamerSquare, where you have multiple people working in it, and if one of them were to be to die or become incapacitated, it would be a major hit to the business. You might consider what's called, like we said, like key person insurance, or depending on if they're all owners, something that's called buy sell insurance. So the scenario of buy sell insurance is basically usually the business, although sometimes it's the individual owners, buy life insurance on each other, so that if one were to die, the company would have the funds in place to either hire someone to fill their role or appropriately compensate the person's significant other while not tying them to the business as well. So say theoretically Ernest and I operated under the same roof.
We do, same apartment. Look
Exactly.
at the background.
Say we operated under the same roof business-wise. It would potentially make sense for the... So I'll say this, Wes. If you have like two owners, it can make sense for them to own policies on each other. If you have more than two owners, the problem that you have is the number of policies you need is the number of owners factorial, right? So like 2 factorial is just 2 times 1. That's just 2 policies. It's 1 on each. But if it's 3 owners, that's 3 factorial, right? Suddenly you need 6 policies. And if it's, right, so like it just goes on and on like that. If it's 4 owners, suddenly you need 24 policies.
And conceptually, like Galen was saying, here's the issue. So Galen and I are operating under the same roof, and Galen dies, right? Well, Katie then, his wife, would end up theoretically inheriting his share of the business.
Yep.
But she's not a financial planner, so the value to her is
extremely
nil.
low. Yeah.
But you have the life insurance policy.
As is her value to the business, right? Not only is it not something that she would want to run, but she would also be much less useful to the business than I am because of the capacity that I operate in.
Right. And so the life insurance policy serves as a stopgap again, because that's what life insurance insurance policies are, to allow for a buyout of her interest, right? So the family gets taken care of, she gets made whole, and the business is allowed to proceed forward.
And that's very important in small, what are basically called closely held businesses that are hard. They're generally hard to sell for fair value, unless you have a lot of prep work going into it. So if the CEO of a Fortune 500 company were to die, that company is publicly traded. There's a market for its shares. They kind of don't need to worry about that, right? They might still have a policy.
Passing, right?
Well,
like
Steve Jobs is a little unusual because of how iconically associated
Right.
he was with Apple, but yes. Versus if it's a small two-person business, that thing's going to be sold in a fire sale if you don't have the funds in place to survive the loss of an owner.
And one key thing too, and this is a bit of a tangent, is that if you're going into business with a friend, you need to make sure, we're not attorneys, all of this advice is considered educational and not specific to you, but when it comes to partnering with a friend or family member, is you need to make sure that in that operating agreement that each owner has the right of first refusal.
Yes.
Meaning Galen, and the example we're going with, Galen and I cannot sell without the other one's approval.
Yep.
Right. So Galen can't go and be like, I've got this great thing set up. My partner's Ernest. I'm going to go sell to this person down the street. And I can't do anything about it because it's not an operating agreement.
Yeah. And normally so because I said the number of policies is the number of owners factorial, it's common for the business to own the policies. So you only need one per owner. Yeah, you'd have a contract in place, usually with right of first refusal, where basically the company has the option to buy out the surviving spouse as opposed to letting them join the business, because most of the time the spouse doesn't want to join the business and the company doesn't want the spouse operating in it because they don't tend to have the necessary skill set or experience to run that business. That's just commonly, right? So that's one where if you have a business that does involve partners and the business is earning money, you may want to have those kinds of things in place. Now, again, it becomes a question of, is it worth it? Because if the business isn't earning very much money, it may just not be worth it, right? Like it might be that the policies are too expensive for the value that they provide. But again, if you're something like a professional services firm, it can make a huge difference. Or if you're something small and closely held and you plan to stay that way, it makes a huge difference. And if it's something that you know you want the company to survive you, but your heirs are unlikely to want to take over the company or participate in it, then it makes even more sense. That's one of the ones that I could see rarely applying to streamers, even if rarely, as opposed to some of the other ones that we talked about. And again, it would be much more for ensemble type of channels, but plenty of those exist.
And I would say, as a general rule, I can maybe count on one hand the times where, patriarch or matriarch of the family passes and heir comes in to run the business and it going well, let alone like a chosen successor. Like it's a very, very hard thing to do, just as a general rule. I mean, I know this is no one's going to inherit a channel, right? But it's one of those things where but it's a very hard thing to pull off. Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard thing to pull off in any capacity, and entertainment is one of the hardest things to transfer, right? Like you could, my father is now retired, but he has a child going into the same profession he was in. Like theoretically then, if he were running his own practice, she could have taken it over.
Conceptually, think of this, think of the fracas that happened when Star Wars changed creative directors, or let alone just a 20-year gap between movies. No, it was 84 to 96, I want to say, so maybe a 15-year gap. And look at the blowback that the prequels got, right? Yep. So that's the same thing, just a different sort of form, I'd argue.
I was in elementary school with Jake Lloyd. Those movies really messed him up, actually.
Oh, messed up. Wait, hold on, stop.
What?
You went to elementary school with Jake Lloyd?
Yeah, he was like a year behind me.
Okay, we're going to have a talk off stream about the things that you don't share with me. This is
When would this have come up before?
I feel like, hi, my name's Galen. I went to school with baby Darth Vader. That should be your intro line.
He was Darth Vader.
Okay, continue. Yeah. Anyway, so you talked about so that potentially, is there any other insurance types?
Wes, we're talking about, in terms of your son moderating channels when you pass, we're talking about things that actually have, stated economic value.
Oh my God, that's so savage. I saw it coming too. Oh no. Oh.
So
Oh, you hate to
get
see
the
it.
streamers to pay you, and then maybe
Oh my God.
right, cross the picket line, get paid. Um, so yeah, so those are the things on the business side that I think might make sense for streamers. In limited circumstances, it might make sense if you work in a pretty tightly bound partnership to have a buy-sell agreement in place, or maybe a key person insurance. Again, I'm picturing the channels like Critical Role, right? Not or even Hyper RPG, right? But the bigger channels that focus on an ensemble cast.
And also, as part of this, if you're doing an ensemble channel, have contracts in place, because nothing will end that friendship or collaboration faster than a dispute,
Yep.
and then not having a guiding document to refer to.
Yep. Yep. On the personal side, we've talked about this a bit before, and let's see, we've been going for 40 minutes, which is impressive. I can touch briefly on some of the personal ones, but I also need to make sure that I actually have food ready for my wife when she gets home. Now that she is very pregnant, she's also very hungry when she gets home, which is understandable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have food for it because I just got back from a trip last night, late.
Definitely have health insurance.
Yes, so health insurance is a big one. If you're in the U.S., open enrollment is in November. You need to spend time doing your due diligence to figure out what kind of policy makes sense for you, both with what's available through your local providers as well as what level of coverage do you need. So, for instance, if you're like us and you know that you are planning on getting pregnant in the near-ish future, it may make sense to have a more
Robust
comprehensive,
policy.
robust policy because you're anticipating a lot of medical expenses. If you're younger, relatively healthy, no family history of major medical issues, it might make sense to get a policy that's a little bit less robust and lets you contribute to an HSA, right? If if you're a streamer and you're making a full-time living from it, I think it often makes sense to get long-term disability insurance, because if you were unable to stream, it's not like, again, like I was saying, there's enduring enterprise value in your stream.
So on that, I have a question for you. So what is the difference between accidental death and long-term disability? Because they almost sound similar. I know they're
One
not,
you're dead and one you're disabled.
but like so I lose my arm, right? So how does that work?
But you're not dead then.
I'm not dead. I'm
So
saying
disability insurance pays out if you are unable to work, and it depending on the terms in the policies. It might be if you're unable to work any job, or if you're unable to work your job, it pays out a percentage of your income. Accidental death insurance pays out if you die in a gruesome way, versus life insurance, which just pays out if you die. Without most of the caveats about how you die. So disability insurance is a big one, because if you are a streamer, there are plenty of things that could knock you out of being able to productively stream. A cancer diagnosis where you're going through chemo, you may not be able to stream anywhere near like you were before. As Ernest said, if you lost an arm and you're a Mario Maker streamer, you're probably not going to be quite as good at Mario Maker, right? You may be able to do some level of it, but you might not be able to do it at the same level.
this may be inappropriate, but I'm going to go for it.
Could start.
Okay, ready?
Uh-huh.
On Mario Maker, all you have to do is go right. Just hold right.
Nope. That's not even true anymore.
For the upside down level, or what?
There are left to right or right to left levels, aren't there?
There are some right to left levels,
Yeah.
but essentially hold a direction. That's all you have to do.
Exactly. So there are the auto levels, right? That play out that play as long as you just hold right or whatever. Those are great. So
But yeah, I just wanted to point that out because I've seen circumstances where people confuse AD&D and disability.
Gotcha.
And so it's one of those things that you wouldn't think that, but like it's one of those things where you want to know these products if you're going to get them and know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah. And what you want to do if someone is trying to sell you an insurance product is talk to someone who knows about insurance but doesn't sell it. Or is someone who's like a broker who deals with multiple lines of insurance, because they tend to have a more balanced view on the overall picture.
I did finger guns pointing at you. I hope that made sense.
Yeah. Insurance tends to carry very heavy commissions. So the people who sell insurance tend to think it's amazing. And they tend to think it fits a lot more situations than it does. So yes.
On that, for perspective, so you've done wealth management, Galen, that's your specialty.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you seen people hawking life insurance as a great vehicle for that,
How many
right? That
emails
specific
do
thing.
I get in a month about people trying to get me to sell life insurance to my clients or let them do
Cash
it?
value surrender. It's such a great investment.
Yeah, on that note, since we hadn't talked much about it yet, life insurance is one of those ones that gets oversold. The reason that you need life insurance, there are two reasons that you need life insurance. One is if you're worried about estate taxes, and right now you pay the estate tax if you die with
24 million. No one is worried about life
it's
or
like 11
estate tax.
million if you're a single person and 22 million if you're married. So that's one reason to worry about life insurance. And if that is your concern, come talk with me. If you've got $22 million, we can talk about your life insurance needs.
Also, talk to me. You probably need tax help.
But beyond that, the reason that you might need life insurance is if, in the case of you passing away, someone would be economically damaged. So this is a very Spartan definition, right? But it's intentional. It's a utilitarian definition. If someone were to be economically damaged by you passing away, then it might make sense to have life insurance. That tends to be a spouse, a child, a relative who you support, something like that, right? Where, say you have a parent who can't care for themselves or a sibling, right? Then it might make sense because then there are funds in place that replace any potential lost income you might have in their support. But if you don't meet those two criteria, there's not really a reason to have life insurance. And do not listen to the people who tried to sell it to you as an investment, because it's a great way to start. There are much better ways to start.
Yeah. So for a utilitarian type explanation, I heard a story once, and I can't remember if this was a business professor or someone was telling me this, but essentially someone had got life insurance on their kids.
Yeah, you can do that.
And you can do that, absolutely. And someone said, to make it short, this person was an idiot. And you know why, Galen?
Why?
You don't insure your liabilities. That's some financial evil humor right there.
That is hilariously gross.
Explain the joke. Explain the joke.
That is hilariously gross.
Explain the joke for the people, because that'll make it actually funny for them. Right? Because explaining jokes makes it funnier.
It absolutely. Basically, kids cost you money. They don't make you money. So if you're insuring something that costs you money, you'd probably make about as much if it just was no longer costing you money. It is something that people can occasionally do, where they buy life insurance on their kids as like a thing that they can pass on to them later or something like that. But realistically, what you're insuring is your economic value. So if you no longer have economic value, you don't work for whatever reason and don't plan to in the future, you also probably don't need life insurance. But that's one that tends to get over and sold. We touched on disability insurance. We touched a bit on health insurance. We touched a bit on renters insurance and homeowners insurance. You want to make sure that if you are working from home, that your policy covers the fact that you work from home. On auto insurance, do not go with the state minimum required coverage. It's way too low. Auto accidents tend to be either very inexpensive, they're a fender bender, maybe you don't want to involve insurance, or very expensive. They're much more than a fender bender, and it's going to cost medical and physical property replacement and.
And if you are a full-time broadcaster, one thing I would say to look into is potentially looking at a mileage limiter on your auto insurance, because you're probably not driving that much, so you still have a pretty strong policy, but the premiums get reduced because you're actually not driving that much.
Yep.
So that's something you could definitely look into as a theoretical way to still have protection, but also save a few bucks on the corners.
Yep. Exactly. Am I missing anything on the insurance front? I don't think so. What I primarily wanted to do is answer the first question we got, which is, are there types of business insurance that streamers need? And the answer is, because of how streamers operate, probably not. The one that you might potentially need is if you're in a strong partnership situation. But beyond that, there's probably not business insurance that you need. You don't need errors in it. I don't think there's a reason that you'd need errors in omission or malpractice insurance. I don't think that you'd need anything about like business continuity or key person insurance because streamers tend to be solo businesses. I don't believe that you would need any of the like business liability stuff in terms of you're probably not having people come physically to where you are or having merchandise that could, disappear or something like that. Um, so you probably don't need much of those. So what you should care about much more is the personal side of things. Health insurance, which, hey, if you're running things as a business, your premium's probably deductible at some level. Are all these do and don'ts based on your impact frequency idea? Yes, exactly. Um, the Again, to put it in fully utilitarian terms, when we were talking about life insurance on the impact frequency, if you don't have anyone who would be economically damaged by you passing away, you're unmarried, you don't have dependent siblings or spouses or any children from previous marriages or from non-marriages, then the frequency of your death is pretty low, right? And B, in the economic sense, the magnitude of your death is very low. Um, that's one that's always hard to say because you sound like such a dick when you say it.
The idea is that if you are single, right, and you don't have a child or a spouse, who are you worried about at that point?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And that's the point of it. Similarly, with the things like the inventory, the stuff that insures your inventory or something like that, streamers don't have inventory. They aren't shipping physical products, right? They aren't.
Most merch deals are collaborative in nature, where that's all housed off site.
Exactly.
The merch seller will often have the commercial liability to cover you, and so really your exposure is not nil, but not an attorney, but I would expect it to be relatively low.
And again, you're probably not hiring employees. Most people, if they are hired by a streamer and paid, are contractors, not employees.
Work for hire.
So they aren't looking at like workers' comp or anything like that, and any sort of employment insurance. So it's really on the personal side, since the business and the streamer are mostly one and the same. So what you care about then is health insurance, so that you actually go to the doctor and get treated for stuff and don't get blown up by that. What you care about is the property and casualty insurance, like auto and stuff like that. You care about disability insurance and to insure your income. That's basically income protection insurance, right? But you, compared to most businesses, actually have a very low insurance need as a streamer, because again, you aren't a family practice doc who's got a clinic where patients come in, where you have expensive equipment, where if you made a mistake, someone could be hugely impacted, right? You don't have that. You are not designed by humans. You don't have expensive machines, shitloads of merch, lots of people working there, right? Which is a good thing, for the record. Like, the fact that you can run a successful streaming business without all of this is actually a good business practice. It comes with its risks too, because then you have no real resale value for the business. But that lack of resale value also speaks to a much lower need for insurance.
And also, if you can make it work full time, which is tough, very tough to do, and not diminishing that, is that your cost burden is exceedingly low compared to traditional or other business models, right? Like, you don't have significant software costs, you don't have significant products that you have to buy, you don't have a big staffing requirement. So that's from a pure logistics standpoint, really nice.
I spend more to run my business than many of my clients who make a lot more money than I do. And I don't run a particularly high cost business, right? But my software costs are higher, but my contractor costs are higher, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And I have to pay for E&O insurance.
Yeah, exactly. So very similar. Your largest costs are software
and staff.
E&O insurance, staff.
And so, like, for me, my dad is a retired physician who used to have his own practice. He in a jealous way, not an antagonistic way, scoffed at my ongoing costs because they were so much lower than his. I didn't have to have all the equipment he had. I didn't have to have the staff that he had, that kind of stuff. I didn't have to have a physical presence. Similarly, if I were to pull a similar move, I would scoff at the ongoing costs of my streamer clients because they're not much once you're doing pretty well.
So real quick, I'll tell one quick joke before we got to get out of here because it's 4:23, so we're about at an hour. When I was in making my bones doing public accounting, learning the craft, I had this quote that was told to me: if it weren't for other partners, staff, and clients, it would be a great profession. So on that, I've got Galen at least 3 times this
If
show,
it
which
weren't
is
for
a
those
record.
damn people and clients, this would be
Yep.
so much easier.
Yep. So on that, any questions in chat, feel free to throw those in there if anyone has anything. I don't know what we're doing next week.
I don't think we have something planned out
Yeah,
yet.
we don't have anything. I know we want to probably get a guest here in the next couple of weeks because I think it's a nice, breaking up of us just rambling. So while we wait for any questions to come in, Galen, you got anything fun planned, or is this still the week of or the months of travel?
I'm doing it is, but on this weekend I'm doing a client feedback event.
Oh, is this the brewery
That's
or the distillery? Or
So
distillery?
because I want to get accurate feedback from my clients, and it's a physical event, so it's only really local clients. Although, if I had clients who wanted to fly in, they could do it. I'm taking a bunch of my local clients on a really, really awesome distillery tour that specializes. They're the Willy Wonkas of booze, is I guess what I'll say. It's a downtown LA distillery tour that involves a boat ride and a carousel ride at a minimum. And so my plan is take them on this distillery tour.
Get them loaded and get the truth serum in them.
Get several tastings of really high strength alcohol in them, and then ask for feedback about my business. Because I feel in whichever direction it skews, it will be very honest feedback. So that's what I've got this weekend. And then I'm probably going out to visit my brother and sister-in-law and nephew to hopefully buy them an hour to sleep.
Very, very
And
cool.
also for Katie, like when we went to visit this kid, right after he was born, I was holding him. I'm the oldest of several children and second oldest of many cousins, so I'm used to holding babies. So I was, holding them doing this. And I swear to you, I look over and Katie looked like Bilbo in that moment when he sees the ring again, when he's at, the last homely house, right? Where he's like,
never heard of it. What's that?
Yeah. But you know what I mean, right? Like that moment he has where he's like,
Right.
When I was holding the baby, Katie was like, give me the baby. It's like, okay.
You've got,
Take
what,
the child.
6-ish weeks? Right?
7, ideally.
7, okay.
September 3rd is our due date, which is...
Gotcha, that's right.
I'm not going to PAX West because of that.
Meet me. So
you got to go to PAX West in my stead.
Okay. What?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would be able to do that because I've got that big thing happening around August.
Oh, that's right.
So
I don't see any questions, so I think we can call it here. Ernest, who are you? What do you do?
I am Ernest Jones. I'm a CPA. I assist broadcasters with tax compliance, and that's what I do. And who are you, sir?
I'm Galen Herbst Cortina, and basically my job is to help streamers make more smart money decisions and fewer stupid ones.
It's a great tagline.
Thank you. It's not perfect, but I like it better than anything I've had previously. All right.
Well, that's my motto for life.
Have a good day, everyone. We will be back next week. We will figure out what the topic is. We don't know yet. But bye.
Have a good night. Thanks for coming, everybody.